Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, Ad Nauseam listeners, to episode 116. My name is Dr. David C. Noe. I'm here in the Vomitorium South, with my good friend, oft-time colleague, erstwhile colleague, and co-host, Dr. Jeffrey T. Winkle. How are you, Jeff?
I'm feeling good. The sun was shining as we walked into the bunker.
Yes, that was nice.
This afternoon, and I'm excited. I'm leaving for Greece in a week.
Rub it in.
Yep, and we could maybe talk a little bit about that at the end of the episode.
I'd love to.
Sure.
Yep. Did I use the term erstwhile?
You did.
Did I use it correctly, though?
I don't know how you use that word.
I don't know.
I like the way it sounds, but I've never really fully known.
I like the way it sounds, too.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
I have similar problems with the word Zeitgeist.
Oh, Zeitgeist?
I'm pretty sure I've used that incorrectly.
All the German terms are subject to misuse.
Exactly.
Nachleben.
Yeah.
We got Doppelganger right, though.
I think we got that one right. Yeah, that's got to be near the top of my list. Right? It's like, those Germans, they have words for everything.
They do. Stick to Gesundheit, you'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
There was another one I came across recently, Sehnsucht.
Sehnsucht.
Yeah, it's a feeling of longing for something. I think it's Sehnsucht.
I like that.
Yes, I do too.
There was a German exchange student that I went to in high school, and he was telling me that the Gesundheit.
Right.
They have also when you sneeze, you say that over there as well.
Yes.
It means health.
Yes, good health.
And so the joke was when someone sneezed, you wished them Schönheit. You wished them beauty.
Oh, Schönheit.
Right, so it was kind of a joke, like you need
Interesting.
you need to become more attractive.
Right. Like the Seinfeld episode. You're so good looking.
Oh yeah.
Instead of saying God bless you, you say
so good looking.
Right.
Schönheit. Yes.
Yeah. So as to attach this to the classics.
Yes.
As individuals who went through graduate school, matriculated, and so forth, we had to demonstrate capacity in at least 2 contemporary languages of research.
That is true.
And mine were German and French.
As were mine.
And that's pretty standard. Sometimes there's a little bit of Spanish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or Italian, because both of those languages, there's a body of classical scholarship in Spanish and Italian.
Yeah.
Not as large as German or French. Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes people will say to me, what languages do you know? I say, well, English primarily, but also some Greek and Latin. Do you know German? I say, well, I know a little German. Oh, really? Yeah, Klaus.
That's his name, right?
Right. Lives down the street.
He's a short little guy.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. Yeah. In grad school, those were the only 2 options available to
were German and French?
Yeah, they offered us. We did. There were 2 consecutive summers. They offered like a cram course.
Intensive.
Did you have that too?
I did that for German, and therefore I was exempt from taking the proficiency exam.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But for French, I just studied and took the proficiency exam.
Yeah. Well, with a background in Latin, it makes it's much.
The French was very easy.
Yeah, exactly. But German, no, I needed that course.
Oh, that was difficult.
Yeah, very, very difficult. Yeah.
Right.
So what are we talking about again? How did we get off on that tangent?
We were talking about different German terms.
That's what it was.
Right.
Okay, all right. But what are we talking about
today? I used
today?
the term erstwhile, and then you threw in Zeitgeist.
That's it. It's all coming back to me now. Right.
It's all coming back. It's coming back to you now. We're talking about Camilla.
Camilla.
In Book 11.
Yes.
We are near the end of the epic. And Camilla is the warrior princess who has an aristeia, right? A moment of great exploit. She's got her jazz solo here.
She does.
In Book 11, but it ends on kind of a sad note, a blue note.
It does. And we were talking a little bit last time. I think our opening quote from last time was talking about kind of the isolation of Camilla.
Right.
And kind of puzzling about that. And one of the striking things about her is that she never meets Aeneas.
Right.
You might expect okay, this is going to end in a hand-to-hand in a duel, but that's not her story.
No. In the Marvel universe, if you introduce a fantastic character like Camilla, for her not to have some kind of contretemps, there's some French.
Yeah, nice.
Some kind of contretemps with the main protagonist would be deeply disappointing.
Yes, and it'd be really strange.
Correct.
Right.
Even if it's obviously staged, right? It doesn't serve the plot. You have to bring them together just because of the conflict of their powers, right?
Exactly.
You've got to show that.
Exactly.
But Camilla never has that with Aeneas.
That detail reminds me actually of Caddyshack. You've seen Caddyshack?
I don't think so.
No?
I know it's Bill Murray and it's a golf course. And
Yeah. So apparently, so Bill Murray's in there and Chevy Chase are also in there.
Right.
And so they filmed, they wrapped the film and they realized that there were no scenes in Caddyshack where you have Bill Murray and Chevy Chase actually together.
Oh, really?
And these were two, SNL.
They were really popular.
Very popular at the time, 1980, late 70s. And so they actually went back and filmed an additional scene just for the sake of having those two guys together. Right. So it's almost like a test audience would come back and say, really? You have these two guys and they don't interact?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So that's the Camilla and Aeneas here then. So which one is Bill Murray?
I would say that I think Camilla's more Bill Murray.
I would say so.
Yeah, and Aeneas is our Chevy Chase.
Right.
That's a stretch. Yeah.
Well, he plays the straight man sometimes.
That is true.
And so Aeneas would be doing that.
There we go. All right.
So as we get started, we have an opening quote.
Yeah.
Right? The Ope quote, and we hope you like it. This is from the author is E.N. Genovese.
Yes.
And the article is Pacific Coast Philology. That's the source. April 1975. We were just wee lads at that point.
That's right.
And the title is Deaths in the Aeneid.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So shall I read this for
I'd
us?
love to hear it.
Right. So in this, I took the quote here from kind of the middle of his article. And generally speaking, what Genovese is doing, I don't know if it's a he or she, what they're trying to do is connect themes in all of the major deaths, right? And so he makes an argument that there is a kind of a clear arc as you go from Dido to Turnus.
Okay.
And he's locating Camilla in this sequence. Genovese writes, but the final and most obvious transition from Dido to Turnus is found in Camilla, who is in fact a Dido of the battlefield and is clearly associated with the queen through the image of Penthesilea. Camilla, like the Amazon on the frieze of Juno's temple in Carthage, is the last to be listed in the catalog of Italian warriors, and she, too, is the only woman. Significantly, she is a dedicated favorite of Venus's traditional rival, Diana, with whom Dido was compared at length. I don't remember that. But
It's in book 4.
It is, but I just don't remember that comparison.
I think that the extended comparison is during the hunt scene.
Oh, okay.
Isn't the hunt scene in book 4?
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Dido and Aeneas go on a hunt, and they back themselves into a cave, and lo and behold, they get married.
That's right.
And Dido is compared to the huntress.
There we go. Continuing on. Camilla is, nevertheless, an Italian and shares with Turnus his hatred for the Trojans. Her death is noteworthy first for the effect that it has on Turnus. Illa furens, he goes mad.
Goes berserk, yeah.
Second, Camilla's last thoughts are of her absent comrade, that he should take her place in combat and keep the Trojans from the city. Moreover, we may not neglect the verse describing her death, since it is used again to end the Aeneid with the death of Turnus. And I thought this was really interesting, that linguistic connection. Vitaque cum gemitu fugit indignata sub umbras.
Nice.
The same words are used for Turnus' death as are used for Camilla.
Exact same phrase.
Yes. The force of repetition is not lost, since both youthful warriors, like the young Trojan Euryalus, died because of furious excess, their lust for spoil. Arruns is able to bring down Camilla because she has become carelessly obsessed with pursuing the richly accoutred Chlorius. The gleaming helmet of the slain Messapus betrayed Euryalus. The belt of Pallas will prompt Aeneas to carry out the revenge he owes Evander.
Nice.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't, as I was reading this book earlier this week, that didn't strike me as kind of this connection between, it's their obsession over the spoils.
Yeah.
That kind of takes them off the path or leads to their death. But that's an interesting connection.
It's a very interesting connection. The third element here in the list that he gives, I don't understand its place. So when he says, the gleaming helmet of the slain Messapus, this is from book 9, betrayed Euryalus. So that's a reference to the nighttime raid of Nisus and Euryalus. Okay, good. And the same holds true here of Camilla, right? Because she's obsessed with pursuing Chlorius.
Right.
But the belt of Pallas will prompt Aeneas to carry out the revenge he owes Evander.
I don't buy that.
The connection there is, okay, Aeneas is responding to the presence of a piece of clothing.
Right.
But it has nothing to do with his motivation. It's not that he wants to possess it.
Yes.
Like Euryalus wanted to possess the helmet. So that seemed kind of off.
And it doesn't quite work because, of course, the getting of that belt back doesn't lead to Aeneas' death.
No.
Right. So yeah, I think I agree with you. That doesn't quite fit here.
Right, but the rest of it is very insightful and interesting. So where did we last see Camilla? Because she has appeared previously in the epic.
Right. And I think we briefly talked about her on our episode on book 7. But in the very last lines of book 7, Vergil introduces us to this warrior maiden.
Right. So our episode on book 7, that was 2018. Is that when we
seriously
touched on that?
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Oh my.
Yeah. So yeah, I barely remember this, but
yes,
and refreshing my memory, that kind of the image of her kind of running over the waves and the tops of the grain is quite striking.
Yeah, shall I read that little bit of Lombardo here?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so the last lines of Book 7. So, last of all rode Camilla the Volscian, leading her mounted troops and squadrons flowering in bronze. The princess warrior had not trained her hands to women's work, spinning and weaving, but trained to endure the hardships of war and to outrun the wind. She could sprint over a field of wheat and not even bruise the tender ears, could cruise above the open sea's waves and never wet the soles of her feet. All the young men, and their mothers too, flocked from their houses and left their fields to watch her ride by, mouths open in wonder, at how the royal purple draped her smooth shoulders, how her hair was bound in gold, and how she carried a Lycian quiver and an iron-tipped spear. That is so interesting, isn't it?
It is. It really is. That detail of the people kind of standing agape.
Yes.
Reminds me of that bit from Ovid's Daedalus and Icarus, where he imagines the shepherd and the others kind of frozen and kind of wondering if these are gods traveling the sky.
Yes, that's the Bruegel the Elder painting.
Exactly. Right. And so the world stops when Camilla comes by, and everybody has to look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as a literary device, it's very clever for Vergil to invite his readers to become part of the audience by describing how an audience responds.
Yes.
So you're invited to think, okay, so I'm standing there by the roadside also as Camilla rides by or as she races by.
Right.
It brings us into the situation.
Exactly, right. Now, I was just curious, do you think we're meant to take, these details of her running over the tops of grain and skipping across the water literally?
Of course.
So she has these kind of divine-like powers.
I don't know. The line between divine and mortal is not so fixed at this time. Everybody's descended from a god or goddess.
Okay.
Can't you do these kinds of things? You never run faster than the wind?
Never.
Okay.
Never in my life, right?
Run, Forrest, run.
Right. So, we do learn about this. I mean, she's blessed by, well, not blessed by, but favored by Diana.
Yes.
All right. So maybe that's, maybe part of this. I read that and I wonder, okay, is this a little bit of poetic hyperbole?
Sure, it could be.
All right.
Yeah. I kind of take it at face value.
Okay.
It's great dramatic impact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very evocative and pulls out your imagination.
So I also, before we kind of dive in, I wanted to mention kind of this detail we just touched upon a little bit last time. This idea that Camilla is one of the only kind of pure inventions of Vergil.
Right.
That he's not drawing upon any kind of Roman tradition.
Right. Or Greek tradition.
Or Greek tradition. Right. And I was curious kind of what you think about that. If that's true, what is he up to? Why does Vergil craft this singular, unique character? What's the point?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think in comparison to Ovid. You know the character Tumnus. Vertumnus, that's what I'm looking for. The faun, Vertumnus.
Yeah.
Who is in the Metamorphoses.
Yes.
And Vertumnus, right, becomes a kind of a woodland Cicero when he is it Pomona whom he's romancing?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
yes, it's Pomona. So Ovid scours the landscape for indigenous personalities, Camena, the muse, and so forth. He talks about the Sibyl, right, the Italian Sibyl, in order to incorporate indigenous elements into what's basically a catalog of Greek mythology. Mm-hmm. So Vergil's kind of doing the same thing, but there isn't, I guess, someone who fits this role of an indigenous woman who is great in war, great in battle.
Yeah.
Who's the character? In fact, the only individuals from Roman history that you can think of mostly had very disastrous endings, like Tarpeia, right? Who betrayed the Romans, and so she was thrown from the rock.
Right.
She betrayed the city to the Gauls, and I mean, she couldn't fit in here anyway. Chronology's wrong. And then Lucretia, right? But in terms of a heroic woman, someone who has great battlefield exploits, who is there?
That's a really good point. Yeah. And as I was kind of pondering this too, I kind of settled on two things. I think, we said that he's not drawing upon a Greek tradition for the character of Camilla. Well, he kind of is. I mean, he compares her to Penthesilea, right? So it reminds me of the part of the Trojan saga. The Amazons come to help the Trojans.
Yep.
And so it's kind of it's a switcheroo where Camilla is kind of our stand-in for the Amazons. She shows up to help the Rutulians and the Latins.
Enemies of the Trojans.
Enemies of the Trojans, right. And the second thing I thought of is she's Volscian. Mm-hmm. And what we know from Roman history is that particular tribe was a thorn in the side as the Romans started to expand in their territory, and was a particularly ferocious enemy. and it was very difficult for them to put down and to incorporate.
Right.
And so I wonder if that he makes Camilla stand out as a Volscian, and that's kind of the point. To say, okay, she represents kind of these peoples that the Romans have had so much trouble with for so long.
That's very persuasive.
Right. Which I think, and I've read things or heard things that, Camilla is, because she's a warrior woman, she stands out. And so she's been, interpreted as a kind of, feminist ideal, right?
Okay.
In a sea of patriarchy.
Right.
But if we look at her as a Volscian, as she represents this bugbear, this boogeyman for the Romans, I think that undercuts kind of a notion of that Vergil intends for us to see her as heroic.
Yes, that's a good point. Maybe the fact that she is a woman makes her death more tragic, pathetic.
Yeah.
So he gets 2 for 1.
Yeah.
The focus is really on the Volscian connection, but that's highlighted by the fact that she's a woman.
She's a woman, and then from Genovese's point of view, that connects her to Dido.
Correct.
So we're supposed to be reminded of her to some degree.
And she's beautiful, right? She's described not just as having great military prowess, but her smooth shoulders, her hair bound in gold, right?
Yes.
So it's there's an attractiveness there, and so when she dies, it's more sad.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's dive back into the narrative. What do you say?
Yep. Let's do that.
All right. So we remember from our last episode, the Trojans and the Latins they've had a truce. They've had some time to bury their dead, and now in the second half, the Trojans end the truce. Sorry, moving on to the Latins, and the Latins are scrambling to get ready for this next onslaught of the battle. Right. And we have some Latin here, starting at line 477. You want to read some?
I'd love to.
Right.
Nec non ad templum sumas quad pallidus arces, subvehetur magna matrum regina caterva, dona ferenes juxtaqua comes Lavinia virgo, causa mali tanti oculos deiecta decoros, suce dunt matres et templum tura vapordrant, et maestas alto fundunt de limina voces, arme patent praeses belli tritonia virgo, franga menu te lum frigii praedonis et ipsum, pro num sterna solo portis qua fundet sub altis.
Nicely done, as always.
Thank you. There was a hiatus there.
That's right. Explain what is not to the audience.
Right. So this poetry, dactylic hexameter, right? Scanning along, rapid combination of dactyls and spondies. So you've got the dactyl, long, short, and the spondee, long. But sometimes if one word ends with a vowel or an H, and the next word begins with a vowel or an M. Did I get that right? No. If it ends in a vowel or M, begins in a vowel or H, then the words can collapse together, called elision. And so they're pronounced together. So in the fourth line that I read, we have tanti, which ends in a vowel. The next word begins with a vowel O, oculos.
So it looks like there should be an elision.
There should be an elision. So normally we would say tantaculos. We'd run them together. But the poet can introduce a breathing, right? He can tell us, oh, nope, this is a breathing spot. They don't elide. So, causa mali tanti oculos. And a hiatus usually brings great drama to the line.
Yes.
It's a pause. You ever sing in a choir?
I have.
Okay. So, when you sing in a choir, everyone in your section, or maybe even everyone in the choir, is supposed to breathe at the same time.
Right.
So you don't have 25 different people gasping for breath at 25 different places.
Exactly.
So you take a pencil and you mark the music, and we're all going to breathe here.
Yes.
That's kind of like what a hiatus is. You're supposed to breathe here.
Right. That's interesting because the hiatus is right after the words that when I was reading, wanted to call attention to.
Exactly. The most important words, you might say.
Yeah.
Can you read us the Lombardo portion of this translation?
Yes. The queen herself rode with a throng of women to the temple of Pallas on the high citadel, bearing gifts. And at her side, eyes lowered modestly, was the maiden Lavinia, the cause of all this misery. The women went up and filled the temple with clouds of incense. Their sad voices drifted down from the threshold. Mistress of war, Tritonian maiden, break the spear of the Phrygian marauder and lay him out on the ground before our gates. So I just thought that was the referring to Lavinia as the causa mali tanti, the cause of all of this great evil. I thought was a little unfair.
Really?
Yes, because I mean, what's striking? One thing I found striking about Book 11 here is in the second half we have a deep contrast between what I take to one of the most boring of the feminine characters, Lavinia. She's a cipher.
She never speaks.
Doesn't do anything.
Right.
And then Camilla, who's this extraordinary figure who just jumps off the page.
Right.
But this language that kind of Vergil makes a point of like, oh, well, this is all Lavinia's fault.
Right.
That has not been that has not been foreshadowed at all. I mean, what's going on here? She seems to be so uninvolved in everything.
Does causa always indicate culpa, right? For her to be the cause of such great misery? She's the cause in the sense that it's why it happened, but does she necessarily bear moral blame? I'm not sure he's saying that.
Yeah, okay.
And so if we compare Lavinia to Homer's Helen,
Yes.
Homer's definitely saying that about Helen.
Yes.
He calls her kunops, right? Dog face.
Right. right.
And it's clear that the Trojans generally hate her, although they are, her hosts while she's there in the city.
Yeah.
Hector, he's kind of fond of her. They have some exchanges, but he knows she's the cause of the battle. Priam has to say, it's okay, we're not going to mistreat you.
Priam says he doesn't blame her.
Right.
Right.
But the whole city kind of has a little bit of a strong discomfort.
Right.
A little bit of a strong discomfort. They're uncomfortable with Helen.
Yeah.
So I think their cause and guilt go together.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure that's the same for Lavinia.
Okay, that's I think I like that. I think when I read, causa, and then when I read, Lombardo's translation, the cause of all this misery, I immediately kind of equated it with culpa.
Right.
But comparing it to Helen, the backstory with Helen is that, although the Greeks argued about this, she has a lot more agency in her choice to run off with Paris, or at least in some traditions. Lavinia she doesn't do anything.
Right.
And so I thought that even the mild suggestion that the guilt of this rests on her, I thought it struck me as odd.
Well, you could even argue, is she really the cause? I mean, if you subtract from the equation the notion of culpa or guilt and blame, is she even really the causa? I don't know. The cause is the fate for Aeneas to inhabit the peninsula and found the Roman people.
Right. So she's just she's a cog in the machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a very boring cog, as you've pointed out.
Right. Vergil would give her some lines, to make her a little bit three-dimensional.
Do you know if anyone has ever done a mashup or a backstory or anything? The story of the invasion of the Trojans from the perspective of Lavinia?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's been a lot of that.
Madeline Miller is the novelist of whom you're a great fan.
I do like her.
The Circe novel.
Yes. Right. I mean, she also has the Song of Achilles, which is more or less kind of a retelling of the Iliad in more kind of modern prose. It's very well done.
Right.
But I'm thinking more along those lines, something like Margaret Atwood's The Penelopead, where she looked at the story of the Odyssey from the viewpoint of Penelope. And one of my students just yesterday was talking to me about, I think it's some novel, I think it's called something like 1,000 Ships, that looks at the Trojan War through the lens of female characters. This is a kind of a trend right now.
It is a trend,
right?
sure.
So
it's a wide open field. There's a lot of material.
Exactly.
It's already been done.
Yeah.
In Greek and Latin, right? You have Euripides' endless retellings. The Trojan women, the Andromache, the Hecuba,
Iphigenia,
the Helen, the Iphigenia. I mean, there's just 5 plays off the top of our head.
Right.
And Ovid did it too, right?
Right.
With his Heroides and such. But it hasn't been done in English in a modern sense.
Right. Exactly.
Too much.
Too much. Right. And the in the modern sense, it often kind of comes prepackaged with a
Here it comes.
Well, politics and ideology. It's hard to
yeah, they corrupt a lot of things, don't they?
Yeah, or they're just kind of the water in which these things swim.
Right.
But I think like Lavinia, because there's such a nothingness to her, would be the perfect kind of loose thread to kind of tug it.
It's a blank slate.
It's a blank slate.
Maybe we should cancel the podcast and you and I write a romance novel about Lavinia.
Oh man,
could we team write that?
Oh, it would be so wonderfully awful.
It'd be terrible.
It would be terrible.
Just imagine the dialogue.
Right.
Can't do that. But because she's quiet, it's a wide open arena.
Yeah, exactly.
You can impose on this character whatever you want.
Right.
So,
but it's kind of fascinating to think about. Like, what must she be thinking through all of this?
Well, she had a terrible mother, right? Amata was awful.
Awful, yeah.
Even before the problem with the Fury, Amata was awful.
Right.
And her father, Latinus, he's pretty bland.
Yeah. So yeah, she's got a lot of strikes against her.
Yes.
But
went on to be though the mother of the Roman race.
That's true.
But a blank slate.
Yeah. All right, so then Camilla arrives.
Okay.
And I thought was striking. She just takes over. She basically tells Turnus, "You hang back. I'll take care of this." And I thought it was just really striking that Turnus immediately just steps aside. And that's at odds with the Turnus that we just saw in the first half. Where he's he is spitting back against Drances.
That's right.
Insulting him.
Yep.
And blaming him for all of this stuff. And He's on fire. But when Camilla shows up and basically tells him, "You stay back and guard the walls. I'll take care of this."
He complies.
He says, "Fine."
Yep. Right? Fades into the background.
Yep. Yeah, he doesn't really do what she says. He goes off and he finds like a strategic valley to apparently to lure the enemy into the narrow straits. It's the old Thermopylae strategy.
Oh yeah, I've used that many times.
So he doesn't do exactly what Camilla tells him to do, but he is removed from the scene, and he only shows up again once Camilla is dying.
So we can't have two major characters on stage at the same time?
I guess so. It's just too much scenery to be one person can chew the scenery and everybody else has to kind of stand aside.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you see the last of the last two of the Marvel movies? The Infinity War, right? With all the stones and so forth. And then the last one was Endgame.
Yes, I saw both of those.
So the very final battle scene, 40 different characters, right?
Yeah.
When they're fighting against Thanos.
Right.
Everyone comes together and I mean it's a little bit of overkill.
It is.
You lose the sense of the excitement if you can't keep track of all the characters.
It's dizzying, right?
It is dizzying.
That wasn't the twist there. Sorry, spoiler alert. Is
right.
That a number of the heroes disappear, right? Or they're like killed by Thanos.
That's in the second to last one, the Infinity War.
Right.
They all get snapped back into existence in the final one.
Well, of course, right.
Right.
But Iron Man goes down.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
But you're right. It's overwhelming.
It is.
And
there's something exciting to see. Oh, here are all the people. I mean, if you like that stuff, here are all the people I've been following, and they're all together.
Right.
But it's too much.
It is too much, right? And that's what so often these stories kind of boil down to the final duel.
Correct.
Right. It's an age old archetype.
Right.
So it's going to boil down to Aeneas and Turnus, which we'll get to in the next book. Mm-hmm. Right. So Camilla engages in the battle. She's taking over, and then
Turnus is spirited away.
He's spirited away. He'll show up later, but then the camera zooms up to Olympus, and we get a divine scene.
Right.
And this is where Diana comes in.
And I love these divine scenes, by the way.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a very clever device to take us away from all of the hubbub and the topsy-turvy of mortal events and give us the Olympian perspective.
Exactly. Meanwhile, up on Olympus.
Exactly.
Right.
That would be a good name for a talk show, by the way.
What?
The Olympian perspective.
That would be. I like that.
You like that?
Maybe that's a second podcast that you can
maybe
start,
so. Like
right?
the McNeil, what was it? McNeil News
Right.
News Hour. Right.
Right.
And the old Dana Carvey impersonation.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the Olympian perspective.
Yes. I like it. it. So in this Olympian perspective, we have Diana. She's talking to one of her divine sisterhood, somebody amongst her clan. Opus is her name. And she immediately this invites a comparison between Diana and Camilla.
Right.
And so I think this is kind of what Genevieve was saying, is that this also, by extension, connects her to Dido. So Dido, Vergil compares to Diana, and then the fact that Diana cares so much for Camilla, we see a similar kind of connection here.
And how is Camilla described?
As cara mihi ante alias, so dear to me before all others.
Right.
I mean, that's high praise.
That's high praise.
Yep.
That's how I usually refer to you.
Oh, really?
When I talk about my co-host. A co-host than which none greater can be conceived.
Oh, wow. Exactly. Man, I like that.
It's just empty flattery.
No, that's all it is. Oh, man. But what the part about this story I love is that we don't just get Camilla arriving on the scene. We get her really wonderful backstory.
Right.
We get an origin story of Camilla. Yeah. So we learn that Camilla's father is one Metabus. He's a tyrant, and he's driven from his throne.
Is it Metabus?
Metabus.
Did you take one of those?
Take 2 Metabus and call me in the morning?
No. I took one of those from Flint to Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, the Metabus.
The Metabus.
Exactly. That's a nice smooth ride.
It is smooth because you're not really on the bus. It's even beyond bus.
Exactly. It's meta.
It's meta, right. So Metabus is a tyrant.
Yes.
And driven. This is ironic. He's driven. Haha, that's funny.
Oh, nice.
Metabus is driven from his throne by his subjects.
Yep.
And flees with his infant daughter Camilla.
Right. So bring us back to kind of the Volscian aspect of it. Is that again? I think Metabus is he's a Volscian and he's a tyrant, and so I think Vergil's kind of underlining that. Okay, these are these primal enemies of Rome. It's another reason to not like him
because they're not like a republic, which we still are in the Augustan era, no matter what anybody says.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
They're run by tyrants. Metabus.
Right. So he's chased out of town, and he's eventually surrounded by his armed Volscians, his townspeople on all sides, and he comes to a river that he looks difficult to cross. and he decides to save his daughter and commit his daughter to the goddess Diana in this very striking way.
Great.
So he binds his daughter in some fashion to the spear.
I think it was with duct tape.
It must have been. And then chucks the spear and the baby
to safety.
To safety across the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read some Latin here?
I would love that.
Okay. This is line 557 and following. Alma te banc nemarum cultrix latonia virgo, ipsa pater famalam moveo tua prima per aurdras, te latinane suplex hostem fugit accipa testor, diva tuam quae nunc dubiis commitatur auris.
So this is what Metabus says before he launches the spear.
Yes, this is his speech.
It is, yes. And so Lombardo translates this as follows. Lady of the woods, gracious daughter of Latona, this child, I, her father, vow to your service. Yours is the first weapon she grasps as suppliant, flying through the air to escape her foe. Accept her as yours, goddess, I implore you, as I commit her now to the perilous air.
Interesting.
Do you think that, is this supposed to raise sympathy for Metabus and or Camilla here?
It's supposed to raise sympathy for Camilla for sure. I'm not sure for Metabus. Right. I think he's a bit character.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it is supposed to raise a lot of sympathy for Camilla. She's an orphan, right? And she had a rough upbringing. She's like Moses left in the bulrushes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of like that. It's also, I don't think this is deliberate on Vergil's part, but it reminds me of a scene in Caesar's De Bello Gallico where a message has to be taken inside the camp by a spy. And so the message is strapped to a spear, and then the spear is thrown inside the camp.
I don't remember that.
And when it's retrieved, then there's the message.
Gotcha.
So there's a long history of sending messages and these kinds of interesting plot twists where the baby's strapped to the spear.
Yes, right. And then the dedication of the child to the goddess.
Right.
So I guess this
for safekeeping.
This explains why Diana and Camilla, or Diana has a special kind of favor for her.
Right.
Right.
Like leaving the baby Oedipus, leaving him out on the hillside and tamping him down with tent spikes through his heels.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we're leaving him to the gods. They can do with him what they want.
Right.
And they saved him for a worse fate, as we know.
Yeah. No. So I'm sure that Vergil's original audience would have been reminded of those kinds of archetypal stories. But there's a twist here: is that Metabus, he ends up going across the river. He makes it across.
Yeah. So why didn't he just hold her?
Who knows? Who knows? It's very dramatic. And so, but then he goes from place to place, and nobody will accept them. He's the dread tyrant. Nobody wants to take him in. And so he goes kind of savage.
Yes.
He lives in the woods. He
becomes feral.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
One of those feral children like Mowgli.
Yeah.
Or Tarzan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And a little foreshadowing. And so they're living out in the woods,
right.
And he's nursing Camilla with horse milk.
Really?
Yes.
Speaking of horse milk,
yes,
it's time for the ads.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by Ratio Coffee. Hey, Dave, I just realized very recently that Ratio doesn't just sell the Ratio 6 and the Ratio 8,
right.
these machines that we've been talking about for a long time.
Yes.
They sell their own coffee and all kinds of other accoutrements.
They do.
And so I got a shipment of their Ethiopian blend.
Oh, that has got to be Yirgachev?
What's that?
Yirgachev? That's the Ethiopian?
Is that what it is?
I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it is like heaven in a cup.
Is that right?
It is the best coffee in the world, in my opinion.
I haven't tried it. I'm so
love
excited.
The Ethiopian coffees.
But I wanted to let our listeners that if they go to ratiocoffee.com, they're going to find a lot more there than just these two wonderful machines that we spend most of our time talking about in these ads. Yes. So
they also have grinders and nice mugs and lots of accessories.
Yes. Right. So but in terms of their star attractions, it's the Ratio 6 and the Ratio 8.
Yes. Yep. Now, Jeff, this week I came in contact with yet another AI bot.
Oh no!
It's Google's new experiment called Bard.
Okay.
And so, being the kind of gullible person I am, I asked this question. I gave it these instructions. Write a limerick about coffee.
Okay. Oh no!
You want to hear it?
I'm bracing myself.
Here it goes.
Let's hear it.
There once was a bean from Peru, whose flavor was smooth and its hue a lovely dark brown. It could wake you up now and make your day start anew.
Do they really just rhyme now with brown?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, Peru, hue, and anew, okay, not too bad. But brown and now?
No.
I think it's a little better than the one Chat GPT gave us.
I was thinking the same thing.
A little tiny bit better, but still.
I'm still not. I'm not worried about the robots taking over quite yet.
No, not limerick writing. We can beat this.
Oh, without a doubt. Right.
Yeah, but if you, listener, would like to get some great deals on your coffee game, what do you need to do?
You need to go to ratiocoffee.com. Check out these wonderful machines, the Ratio 6 and its older brother, the Ratio 8, and type in the coupon code ANCO9Y.
As in yummy. The Y stands for yummy.
That's what it is this week. Okay.
Or Yirgacheffe, the Ethiopian coffee.
There, even better. And that will get you, I believe, 15% off your entire order.
That's correct. Check it out. This episode of Ad Nauseam is also brought to you by the good people at Hackett Publishing. Hackett Publishing, with offices in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Cambridge, Massachusetts. They have been bringing fine translations and other kinds of works of literature to a mass audience for 52 years now.
Yes, they are as old as I am.
Wow, that's really old.
It is really old. It's ridiculous.
In temporibus antiquissimis.
Yes.
And Jeff, what do you like about?
What I love about you mentioned you call them good people. It's true. These guys have been with us from almost the very beginning of this podcast. They took a chance on a couple of knuckleheads like us.
That's right.
And they stuck with us.
They said, we want to promote the classics.
Right.
We want to bring it to the people. Let them hear, right?
Yes, exactly right. So they're just
crazed ravings.
Yeah. And so I'm just impressed with them as the people, like the guys that we've interacted with have just been just right on board, very supportive. And so all that in addition to these wonderful books that they publish.
Right.
And they're affordable. They're very well done. I really like that you can often find multiple translations of the same work. So it's a grand variety. If you're interested in the classics or in really any kind of corner of history, literature, philosophy, you're going to find something to sink your teeth into at Hackett.
That's right. So some of the circles I move in,
yes,
I will hear people complain about, the coarsening of culture or the dumbing down of culture.
Yes.
People aren't reading the classics. They will say they don't know about the ancient authors. They don't know the Renaissance and such. Well, I feel that way sometimes too. It's easy to adopt that attitude, but the Hackett folks, they're doing something about it.
They are.
Right? They have not only a great set of offerings in those very areas, but they're supporting this podcast.
Yes.
So kudos to them.
Yep. They walk that talk.
Exactly.
So listeners, do yourself a favor. Go to hackettpublishing.com. That's HACKETT publishing.com. Find the books that you want. Put them in the grocery cart. And what's the code they need to type in?
Well, before the code, we have another limerick.
Oh, goodness. Really? Okay.
This is also from the Google experimental product, Bard.
Bard. Okay, what is Bard?
I said, write a limerick about books.
Okay.
And here's what it spat out.
All right.
There once was a bookworm named Bill. Okay, so far so good. Whose love of books was quite thrill.
No.
No.
The bottom just dropped out.
Exactly. He'd read them by night.
Okay.
And by day he'd delight. In the worlds that his books could instill. No.
Oh, that's terrible.
You can't instill a world.
No, that's awful.
No, that word instill can't take world as an object. And especially a book can't do it.
Oh, this Bard.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a lot worse than the
That was a lot
one.
worse than the coffee one. So I think we're safe from the encroachment of the bots when it comes to the writing of limericks.
Definitely, so far. Right?
Yeah. But back to the code.
Yeah, so what's our code? It's
AN2023.
Yes, and that will get you 20% off your entire order and
free shipping.
Don't hesitate.
Okay, Jeff, so as we get back into this.
Yeah.
Horse milk?
Yeah, we were talking about horse milk.
What's going on with horse milk?
So Metabus, Camilla's dad, is raising her on horse milk.
Oh, right.
So I guess that's one of the reasons I think she turns into this wild warrior woman. Right?
Is this, is it the main reason?
Oh, I should have seen that coming.
Yeah. Is it sympathetic magic?
I think we're supposed to see her as almost, part animal.
Right.
Right. And I think so. And she's become one with the woods.
Right. Like great swimmers wear shark's teeth so they can move as fast as a shark. Hunters put on the skins of wild animals in order to adapt some of the magical powers.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. No, I like that kind of sympathetic magic that's going on. Right?
You wear the Nike shoes with the swoosh, right? Or the little wings.
Yes.
It imparts a kind of power and speed, you might think, agility.
Exactly.
The horse milk then.
Exactly. And so it's no surprise then that she grows up the way that she does or turns into who she does. And so
did she ever refuse the horse milk?
As far as we know, no.
Did she dare say nay?
goodness. Okay, can we move on?
Come on, there might be a few more in there somewhere.
Okay, you drop them in there as you see fit.
Okay, all right.
We're going to keep coming back to the horse milk, aren't we?
Well, maybe.
So, horse milk or oat milk?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if people know the oat milk reference back to the hair of one Calypso.
Right,
How
exactly.
she kept her locks so nice.
Exactly.
Alcmenides, I think it was.
Yeah. Anyway, Medibus raises Camilla as kind of a mini little huntress and has her kind of throwing these toy spears around the forest from a very young age. And so
maybe those suction cup darts.
Yeah.
She started out with that.
Exactly.
Shoot at my forehead.
Right. And I thought this was an interesting detail is that you might not think that the feral girl in the woods that the local mothers of the local towns would think, hey, son, maybe you should ask that one out.
But she was beautiful.
That's true.
And she can bring home the bacon if she's a huntress.
I guess so. Right. But
quite literally.
So the local mothers of the towns say, hey, maybe this would be a good, a nice gal to have in the family.
Right.
But I think Vergil offers that detail because he wants to set up the contrast is that, Camilla is not going to be with any man. And Diana alone is enough for her. And
so she's going to be like Daphne, or Atalanta,
right? A would-be virginal maiden,
right?
And so she in her fierce virginity, she's like Diana. I mean, our listeners will perhaps know like goddesses like Athena and Diana. They are virginal; they do not have children,
right?
And so Camilla, she imitates the goddess in that particular way.
That's right.
And so, so I thought, and so as she grows up and she becomes this fierce warrior, this warrior maiden, there's kind of Vergil's kind of using a bit of a switcheroo here. Whereas, in the past, the Trojans were aided by the Amazons.
Yep.
Now we have this Amazon type warrior who's armed against the Trojans.
Right.
And so maybe that's part of the tradition that he's playing with as he kind of creates this new character.
And she stands in the way of the Trojans fulfilling their fate.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Primarily, that's one of the main points. You might say.
Right. So still up on Olympus. So Diana is talking about Camilla. She's upset. This is kind of like Zeus and Sarpedon.
Right.
He sees she sees this warrior that she loves, but she knows that fate demands that she has to die, and she is not going to escape this war. And so Diana does what she can do. She says, well, at the very least, I will vow that whoever harms Camilla, whoever kills Camilla, that person will pay with his own blood. And then she's going to also take Camilla's body away and make sure that she's buried in her fatherland.
Well, that's kind.
Yeah. So there are two, I think a fairly clear kind of reference to the Iliad.
Right.
We're seeing kind of doublets of a number of scenes here.
Do you find your sympathy for Camilla growing as the story progresses?
I still don't quite kind of see where she meets in. I think I'm still bothered by the fact that we don't have kind of some kind of showdown between Camilla and Aeneas, or that they don't even encounter each other. That makes it very difficult for me to answer the question, what exactly is she doing here? So I think I have to be satisfied that she's a stand-in for the Volscians. And she's
counterpoint to Dido.
Counterpoint to Dido, or at least a foreshadowing of the trouble that the future Romans are going to have with this particular tribe.
Right. And
so I don't know if there's to my mind there's more to it than that. I'm really intrigued from our opening quote, the fact that the language used about her death is verbatim. That's used about Turnus's death.
Right.
And I need to ponder that and think about what exactly that means. But so that kind of connection between Camilla and Turnus. Okay, what's Vergil up to there?
Right.
I was looking for. I didn't do a huge deep dive.
Iconographic representations?
Well, not only that, I was looking for, what kind of, German phrase coming in, what kind of Nachleben does Camilla have? And there's not a lot there. I mean, there's some later poetry. I think there was an opera that was written in the Renaissance era about Camilla.
There was the chicken on the Muppet Show. Gonzo's chicken was named Camilla.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We talked about this before. You didn't know it then either.
I did. I never watched the Muppets.
Okay, third time. The third time we come, you're going to have to know it.
Okay, I will. All right,
the character Gonzo had a chicken named Camilla.
Okay, all right. Okay, so there's your reference. But I did find this possible reference. Okay. There's a painting by Sandro Botticelli, one of my favorites.
Of course, Little Barrels.
And this is from, it's now hanging in the Uffizi Gallery, which is not far from his most famous painting, The Birth of Venus or Primavera.
In Florence.
In Florence. And there is a painting that's usually given the title Pallas and the Centaur, which apparently shows a depiction of Minerva.
So this is Athena.
Athena.
Pallas Athena, not the Pallas who's the character in the Aeneid, the young man.
Yes.
But Athena's alternate name.
Exactly.
Which is Pallas.
Yes.
And she's also called Minerva.
Minerva, right. So in this painting, she has a large kind of, what would you call that, like a pole arm?
Oh, it's a halberd?
Halberd, yes.
I think it is. It's a long, spiky, speary thing with a cheese slicer on one side.
Exactly.
An axe head.
And she has a hand, she's kind of grasping the hair of a nearby centaur.
I think she's picking nits.
Is that what she's doing?
Yeah, she's looking for lice.
He doesn't look too happy about what's happening, but
it's because he's in pain.
And so she's kind of grabbing the hair and like in controlling him.
He'll feel better once those lice are out.
That's true. So usually the way this painting has been interpreted in Botticelli, we see this in others' paintings. There's a lot of allegory going on.
Right.
Now, I mean, this is a very standard ancient theme: the triumph of civilization over nature.
Yes. Right? So Minerva, Pallas Athena here is civilization. Mm-hmm. The centaur is the savage.
Exactly.
It's interesting, though, if I may digress for a moment.
Yes.
That in other settings, the centaurs are shown as well, they're also shown as forces of savagery. Mm-hmm. The famous battle between the Lapis and the centaurs.
Yes.
The Lapis are civilization. This is on the temple of Apollo at Olympia, right? And the centaurs are savagery. But then there is the exception. Chiron, the centaur, right, is a force of civilization for Achilles.
Yes, he's kind of the ancient Greek Yoda.
That's right.
Right.
And for many other heroes.
Right. So he trains Achilles. He trains Jason.
Right.
And so centaurs
Mr.
are
Miyagi.
Exactly. Right. So centaurs are often depicted as being primordial.
Yes.
They're very close to nature, and that's what makes them dangerous. However,
as a class,
yes,
as a whole, they're dangerous and destructive and nasty.
Right. But they belong to deep nature, and that's often where you're going to find that, that primordial golden age wisdom.
Right.
So a character like Chiron steps out of that, and he becomes, if you can find him, if you can persuade him,
right, he
will become your Jedi master.
So it's interesting that the one character of the group as a whole, how do I want to say this? I'm struggling here with my words, but if the group as a whole is characterized very negatively, the extreme individual in that group can have a positive characterization.
Yes.
That's Chiron.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right. I think that's right on. So what is this, in this painting, Pallas in the Center, what does this have to do with Camilla? Right. Well, maybe not much. What I found in looking into this is that the earliest descriptions of the painting that survive say this is Camilla and the Centaur.
Botticelli didn't leave any show notes or anything?
He didn't. He was very bad at that.
Didn't write anything on a cocktail napkin?
Nothing. No scrawl on the back of the canvas, nothing. And so that's led some to believe, well, if it's the earliest description, maybe that's the more accurate one, right? So applying Occam's razor.
Right.
I think it's hard to make a case for it. And so here you see Camilla as it's a warrior maiden, and she's taming a centaur because that's something that Camilla would do.
Are there any centaurs on the Italian peninsula?
I don't know exactly. It doesn't make any sense. And so I think kind of looking at this through the lens of civilization and nature, that's kind of, it's obvious to me.
Right.
So I was just grasping for some kind of extra Aeneid reference to Camilla, and there's just not a lot out there.
Yes.
So
that's tough. I haven't encountered anything either.
She wasn't a character that like later authors or painters like seized upon and said, I want to know more about her, or extend her mythology.
I wonder why that is.
Don't know either.
Huh. So not only is there room for a story on Lavinia, but there's room to develop Camilla's story quite a bit too.
Exactly.
And for another brief digression, you know that research universities often come up with different kinds of study institutions.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Center for Hellenic Studies at Princeton and so forth.
Yep.
How come there's no Center for Centaurs?
There should be a Centaur Center.
That's right.
Oh, man.
Where do you work? I work at the Center for Centaurs.
It's a missed opportunity.
It's a very large missed opportunity.
Yes, yeah.
So what would they serve at departmental meetings and so forth?
Like for snacks?
Yeah, horse's milk.
There we go. We're going to bring that back around.
Yeah, all right. Let's get back to it.
All right, so we're done with Olympus, and we're now back down on the battle plane, and we're ready for Camilla's aristeia. And this is some thrilling stuff. She has her moment on the stage, and she kills countless named characters,
right,
and such. And so the war breaks out anew,
and we got this great epic simile. Roll tide, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So that as the tide kind of sucks back and rolls in, such was the surge of the battle back and forth, right? And so it's one side has the upper hand, and then it goes in the other way, and then Camilla takes center stage. How about a little bit more Latin here?
I'd love to do that. So that's we're going to start at line 648. A medias intercaides exultat Amazon, un exerta latus pugnae fare trata Camilla, Et nunc lenta menus pargain sastilia denset, nunc validam dextra ardrapet in de fessa bipennem, ardrea sexumero sonat arcus et armadianae.
Nice. And Lombardo.
Such beautiful poetry. Can I just pause to say how beautiful this is?
It is great.
It's gorgeous.
It rolls like the waves of the sea.
It's incredible.
It's great. So Lombardo translates, Camilla raged, an exultant Amazon, one breast bared for battle, a quiver on her back, whipping javelins from her hand or wielding a heavy battle axe for hours on end. So the battle axe, I mean, it's like Botticelli's painting.
That's correct. Yeah.
Diana's golden bow clanging on her shoulder, and when she was forced by pressure behind to withdraw, she turned in her saddle, bow in hand, and took aim as she fled. Isn't that the so-called Parthian shot?
It is.
As they retreated, they would turn back and fire.
Well, apparently the Scythians could do that as well.
Yeah.
Any of these nomadic peoples, and apparently also the Mongolians were famous as a horse riding people.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was reading this week about the Comanches as well. The Comanches of the American Plains. Yes. Adapted to horse culture in record speed, record time. They became masters of horsemanship in faster pretty much than any other culture had done so.
Is that right?
Well, because horses were not indigenous to North America.
Of course,
they were brought by the Spanish.
Yes.
The Comanches adopted and mastered it really fast.
That's really interesting.
So that's like Camilla.
Yep. Continuing on, around her were her hand-picked companions, Virgin Larina and Tula and Tarpeia, slicing the air with her bronze battle axe, daughters of Italy, whom godlike Camilla chose as her glory in both peace and war. So she surrounds herself with like-minded virginal warrior maidens.
Right.
Yeah. This is really, really interesting.
I guess to kill men more effectively, you can't have any interest in or affection for them.
I guess so.
Is that kind of the trope?
I guess so. Yes, none of those feelings get in the way.
Right.
Between your sword and your victim.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have any interest in him, so I may as well kill him.
Might as well kill him.
Right.
Exactly. And then there's another simile where Vergil goes on to invite direct comparisons between Camilla and the Amazons, if it wasn't clear already. And so he says, to the reader, think of Hippolyte and Penthesilea in battle, and then you'll get a proper picture of kind of who Camilla was. And then
so he's able to reach back into Greek myth,
yes,
and bring in some famous characters,
right? And I think he also he foreshadows Camilla's death, because Penthesilea killed by Achilles.
Oh yeah.
Hippolyta is duped by Heracles when he steals her battle belt, and so these are both characters. Invites the Amazon comparison, but also kind of tells us this is where this story is going, right? Then we get a long list of those killed by Camilla. There's too many to name here. But I thought this, the way that she trash talks is so wonderful. So it's not just killing people, but she kind of rubs their face in it.
The monologue.
The monologue's great.
This guy, Ornatus, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He really gets it.
So Dave, we need some Latin here. Set this up.
All right. So this is line 686. We're going to read 4 of these now. Silvis te tirrene ferasa guitarra putasti, advenet qui vestra dies muliebribus armis, verba redar guaret no men tamen haud leva patrum, manibus hoc referes te lo cecedissa Camillae.
All right. And this is...
what does Lombardo say?
Lombardo says, so this is Camilla kind of taunting Ornatus, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, did you think you were hunting animals, Tuscan? This is the day all your big talk is squelched by a woman's weapons. But you can boast of this to your ancestral shades, that you went down by Camilla's spear.
Ooh.
I think
that is a great battle boast.
It is. I mean, it's kind of like this dual insult. On the one hand, she's saying, are you kind of ashamed that you were killed by a woman?
Right.
But then she also says, well, actually, you can boast about this because I'm a great warrior.
Yes, you got killed by someone famous.
Yes. Yeah.
So the second line is muliebribus armis, women's weapons. Right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly how he translates it.
Yeah, right.
But you can boast about it to your ancestral shades.
Exactly.
You're going to die. You're going down below.
But
tell them that's what happens. Not so bad.
You got this going for you.
Right.
And then there's this wonderful, which I can only describe as kind of a hold my beer moment.
Yeah, I know that trope kind of vaguely.
Yeah.
What is it?
That means like
hold my beer. I'm going to do something great.
I'm going to do something great, like something like somebody throws down like a kind of a vague challenge,
right? And
say, hold my beer from I'll show you what I can do.
I got it.
And so there's a character, I think he's not named. We only get him as a patronym. He's Aeneas' son. Starts mocking Camilla and says, the only reason you're having any success out here is because your horse. You have a good horse, and your horse is really fast, and that's all that's there to you. You yourself are kind of a nothing.
Right. It's just your ride.
Yeah,
you're not so. Get out of the car. Right.
Exactly right.
You're not so great when you're not sitting in that Lamborghini, for example.
Right. And so Vergil suggests that Aeneas' son, his idea was, get her off her horse, she'll be vulnerable, I'll take care of her. But what does Camilla do? She hops down, she runs over, grabs the reins of this guy's horse.
Outruns the horse.
The horse, grabs the reins, and then kills him. Shuts him up.
Oh, my.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have any hold my beer moments?
Boy, not that I can think of lately. Nothing jumps to mind, right?
No. Me either.
It's sometimes I'll...
Maybe at our advanced age... We're the ones holding the beer.
Sometimes I'll have you ever had these moments where you're standing like in a hall or you're in a line with people and you are overhearing a conversation and
you want to get into it?
You want to get in, or somebody says something that's so often wrong.
Oh yeah.
And you everything in you wants to step in and say,
but you know it's wrong.
Okay,
so I did have a moment like this.
Okay.
I was in the Gaim.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes, and I was exercising, and I saw someone doing one of the lifts, and they were not doing it right.
Uh-oh.
And I was really concerned they were going to hurt themselves.
Oh, no.
Because it's not how you do it. You can't put that much weight on that part of your body. And I just wanted to say, don't do that.
Yeah. But you didn't.
No, because it's kind of creepy.
It is,
so
right.
I couldn't do it.
You have to be very careful in those situations, right?
So I didn't, but that would have been I guess that would have been a hold my beer.
I guess so. Yeah. So I don't want to, and I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be I don't want to be the well actually guy. Well, actually. And so I usually refrain and I hold my beer to myself.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. So then what happens to Tarchon?
Tarchon, Jupiter comes down, whips Tarchon into action. I think we met him earlier, right? He's an ally of the Trojans.
Then we didn't see him for a while.
Yeah.
So he was more of Tarkov.
Nice. So he tries to whip his men into action, and he plays the gender card too. He says, "Oh, look, you're letting this woman get the best of you. Turn around and get back in there."
Oh, he's gonna regret that.
Oh, he's gonna regret it big time. But we're kind of dialing down to the end of the book,
right?
Yep. And so, as we learned, Arruns is the one who is going to be fated to kill Camilla, and he's been watching her. And this is where, as our opening quote says, Camilla is distracted. She sees a certain Clorius, and she's distracted by kind of the shiny things he's wearing, and she goes after him.
Is this a gender stereotype?
Well, it kind of reminds me of we made the comparison with Atalanta.
Yeah,
is the one when
distracted by the golden apples.
By the golden apples, by the shiny things, right? Or Achilles on the island where he's dressed like a woman.
Yes,
and all the young women are distracted by the jewelry, and he goes for the helmet and the sword or whatever.
Well, in the lingua latina per se illustrata, if we want to introduce a mini ad right here, we could do that. I think it's chapter 7, Roma Taberna. The Roman shop. There's a line, feminae ornamentis delectantur. Women are pleased by jewelry, right?
Right.
Now, I think on the whole, that's true. Women but it's not false that men like jewelry.
Right.
So I do think it is kind of playing a little bit on a gender stereotype.
It is.
It's a fairly mild one. I don't think it's offensive to be told that you like jewelry, is it?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I mean, I think it's probably some people would say, "Oh, that's sexist."
It needs to be revised,
right? But I don't think Vergil he gets carried away with it. I mean, and in some ways, I think you could make the argument that Camilla just sees Clorius as her next target, not necessarily that she's distracted by the shiny baubles. No. I don't think Vergil goes that far.
No. Maybe he's just someone who's good to loot,
right? Because
part of the killing, is that you get to loot them afterwards.
Exactly.
You take the spoils. So here's some good spoils.
Yes. And so Arruns he's watching what's happening, and he sees Camilla being distracted, and he says, "Here's my chance."
Right.
You want to read Lombardo's translation of this episode? It's great.
So where does this begin here?
He says,
he prays?
Yes.
Yeah. So he prays to Apollo to guide his spears. He wants only her death, no spoils. Apollo heard his prayer, and in his heart granted half of it, and scattered half to the winds. Arruns would defeat Camilla, yes, and lay her low in death, but his high fatherland would never see his return. That prayer the winds bore away to the southern storms. And so as the spear flew from his hand and hissed through the air, all the Volscians turned their eyes and hearts to their queen. But she herself noticed neither air nor sound, nor weapon coming out of the sky, until the spear transfixed her bared breast and drank her virgin blood from deep within.
I like that too. It's almost a moment where, again, everybody stops to see. Like, everybody sees the spear.
It's awful.
Except for Camilla.
Yes. And as it flies through the air, everyone follows it. She doesn't notice.
Yes.
Such a contrast.
Right.
Her comrades hurried around her in alarm and caught their mistress as she fell. Arruns, more frightened than any of them, ran away in mingled joy and fear. unwilling to trust his own spear or face Camilla's weapons.
So
even as she's dying,
yes,
he's afraid.
Yes,
he might get it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so interesting. What a fascinating character. I think again, part of my frustration is I want to know so much more. I mean, Vergil takes his time to give us her backstory and all this stuff, and then she's on stage for just such a short amount of time. Right?
Maybe you need to fill in the gaps. We could write that novel.
It's waiting to be done.
Right.
So Camilla dies, and she uses her last words. Her sister Akka is near her and tells her with her last breath, "Go get Turnus, get him back to the battle." And so this sets up
book 12.
Sets up book 12.
The final denouement.
Yep.
To use another German word.
Yep. But Arruns, of course, is nice.
Thanks.
Arruns he's doomed as well. And so Diana, as she said, she swore, whoever does this is going to be laid low too.
That's right.
And it happens almost immediately. So Opis, this handmaiden of Diana, goes down. She's been watching this, and she strings an arrow almost immediately and sends it whizzing through Arruns' chest. And he's done.
Camilla's gone. Her men retreat. So do the Rutulians. Galloping back toward the city walls, the Trojans take advantage and slaughter hundreds on the threshold of the city.
Right. So Akka goes and finds Turnus. What's he been doing? Why is he out in the forest? What's he waiting for? This is very odd to me.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you're just asking too much. He's got to be off.
He's got to be off the stage, right?
Maybe he's having a sandwich,
right? So,
tying a shoelace, one of life's many indignities.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right.
I mean, first he goes off on that boat. I mean, that was no fault of his own.
No, he was tricked into it.
But now he's kind of just out lingering in the forest, and so Akka goes and finds him and says, "Hey, you got to come back. My sister's dead." Spurs him back to the city.
No reason is really given for his absence.
I guess so.
But we don't need one.
No.
Remember what you tell your students.
Right.
If the poet doesn't talk about it, it's not germane.
Exactly.
He controls the world.
Yeah, exactly.
That he creates.
Well said. And so as the book ends, night falls, and the Trojans are camping right outside the city, and those in the city are scrambling to kind of to strengthen their defenses.
Yes, because this is it.
This is it.
Speaking of this being it, we got to get out of here.
We do got to get out
That's
of here.
the end of book 11. You realize, Jeff, there's only one more book
to go.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to get to the grand finale.
Yes, and then the interpretation, because we've promised throughout this long series.
Yes.
When we get to the end of it, we're going to talk about what does it mean?
Yes.
What did C.M. Bowra think it means? What did C.S. Lewis think it means? And many others.
Does Brooks Otis weigh in on this?
Oh, of course he does.
Of course.
Yeah, we got to get Brooks in there.
It's one of the most interesting questions about the whole epic.
Right.
Can't wait. But hey, Dave, before we go, tell us a little bit about the Moss Method and LLPSI.
Right. So if you want to study Greek and you want to learn how to read the poetry of Homer, Menena Eida Thalape Le Iadio Akaleos, for example, or you want to read Plato or Xenophon or Aristotle, Demosthenes. Aristotle's having a renaissance.
Is he?
Yes, he is. There's a lot of metaphysicians, Thomas Fazer and others, who are reviving interest in Aristotle.
Very interesting.
I can teach you how to read that stuff using my Moss Method course. Go to mossmethod.com. Check it out. Again, I have to say, it may not be the absolute best way to learn Greek in a self-paced, accessible, and expert format, but I'm confident it is the best value in terms of what you get for what you have to pay.
Indeed.
And if you want to get some Latin, go to latinperdiem.com/LLPSI. I have 1,940 freely available mini Latin lessons covering a wide range of authors, but I also have an enrollment program where you can study the Lingua Latina per se illustrata with me. And like the Greek course, you get weekly office hours.
Fantastic. Excellent. So, Dave, who do we got to thank?
We got to thank Mishka,
Yep.
as always, our sound engineer who turns these around in a record time and edits them, makes them sound good and clean and nice. Thank you, Mishka, for your great work. We need to thank our musicians.
Yes, Scott Van Zen and Ken Tamplin for the great guitar that you hear throughout. These guys, when I hear them, they kind of might make me want to kind of give up playing guitar.
Really?
Yes. It's one of those where like, I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
But that's,
there's other things you can do.
Of course.
I don't think Scott knows a lot of Latin, but boy, that guy can play the guitar.
He can play. It's amazing.
Beautiful, bluesy, rock kind of melodies. Very nice.
Yeah.
You can check out his guitar school or Ken's Vocal Academy. What's coming up next week, Jeff?
Next week, I'm going to be in Greece.
You're going to be in Greece, so we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus.
Yes.
bring that word back in there. A little breathing.
A little breather. Yep.
When you return,
Yep.
it's Tarzan and Tradition, Part 1.
That's going to be really interesting. Right? This is something that I have not read about yet. I'm excited by kind of your setup.
Some fascinating material.
Talk to me about it. It sounds great.
Yes. And what if they want to get a T-shirt or contact us? What should they do?
Well, they should go to adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V in there. And you can go to the store, find yourself a nice T-shirt, a Quai Nocent Docent a T-shirt with
That's right.
with Heracles
holding up the world. Or
yes, right, exactly.
Fighting a lion.
Right. And please write to us. You can write to Dave at adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V. Or you can write to me, Jeff at adnauseam.com. Also,
Don't forget the V.
Don't forget that
I
V.
had to work that in there, do my part.
So if you want a shout out, if you get ideas for episodes, you got questions, you got complaints, don't hesitate to contact us. We want to hear from you.
We want to hear the complaints too, Jeff?
We do. I think. Well, we don't really.
All's fair.
All's fair.
Okay.
Yeah. And Dave, I think you have our gustatory parting shot.
I do, and this is from the inimitable Julia Child from her work called My Life in France. Have you seen that movie about the two Julias, or I can't remember the name of it, but it's a story about Julia Child's life.
Oh, I know. I have not seen it. I've heard. I know
it's
what you're
quite
talking about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Dan Aykroyd impersonation of Julia Child on the old Saturday Night Live?
I haven't seen that. No.
That is very funny.
Okay.
So I don't think this quote is so funny. It's
Yeah.
just kind of endearing.
Okay.
I just kind of like it for that reason. And I can't do the Julia Child voice, but my favorite remained the basic roast chicken. What a deceptively simple dish. I had come to believe that one can judge the quality of a cook by his or her roast chicken. Above all, it should taste like chicken.
All right.
I'm with her so far.
Yes.
It should be so good that even a perfectly simple buttery roast should be a delight.
I liked it about Julia Child. She never got too kind of crazy and fancy.
No.
She back to the basics.
Yeah, she
right?
mastered French cooking, I
Yes.
guess, which is very complicated, but her focus was always on what tastes good,
Exactly.
what's simple.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Thank you.